call this special meeting of Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance to order. For the Board of Selectmen, I will call to order at 7:01.
We'll call the Board of, this special meeting for the Board of Finance, and we'll call to order at 7:01 as well.
Awesome. So a few things on the agenda before we kind of call on the Board of Finance more directly. One, we're going to discuss the fines imposed by our Connecticut OSHA inspection. So, took some notes. So background, back in June, 6 days of June, we had the Connecticut Occupational Safety and Health Administration, CT OSHA, performing on-site inspections of 10 town facilities. The facilities included the town hall, police department, park and rec department, Bratwood Park, the transfer station, the Department of Public Works, wastewater treatment, 2 pump stations, and the library. So the inspector made note of several areas that required correction, and much of that was addressed prior to the town receiving the written reports. I do have all the written reports here, if anyone would like to peruse them. They are public information, so you can feel free to see them after the meeting. Following the receipt of the written reports, the town requested an informal conference with the Connecticut OSHA director. Board of Selectmen were all in attendance, as well as the heads of the departments. So each department was given a report with any violations that were noted in citations. And in that time, between the June report and our August sit-down, quite a lot of the violations that were noted were corrected. So even though fines were imposed, that we were looked favorably upon because we took action immediately. So quite a lot of the fines were reduced. And I believe our initial, the town's initial fines totaling about $14,000. After the sit-down and the discussion, that things were corrected or abated, as they called it. We are now looking at about $5,500 in fines. Of course, that also does not include any additional expenses to make the corrections. So some of those things are still, we have a time frame where we have to finish the abatement of those items. And again, that might incur some more expenses to get those things done. So at this point, the town, so when the exact figure is known, the Board of Selectmen will probably be presenting to the Board of Finance a more exact figure. One of the ideas that a couple of the selectmen had was perhaps we have each department take it out of their budget, even though it wasn't included in their budget, and then if they go over money, over their budget or need something additional, they come to the Board of Selectmen at a later time, and obviously come to the Board of Finance. So that's one way to look at it, or we come to you in a month or two. A lot of our deadlines were either extended to October or early December. So at that time, then we could present the exact number that we're looking at, and we can decide what we want to do then. So this, right now, I just wanted to present it for the selectmen, kind of learned of these numbers. The Board of Finance is not, so kind of presenting at this point.
When are the fines due? Couple months, or?
Well, the fine for the $5,500 is due now. And then any additional that a department might incur, doing a report or a little further investigation, will, as it comes up, will be incurred.
So you do not have authority to spend $5,500. It's not in your budget. So the Board of Finance has to do something. Board of Finance, any thoughts on how you'd like to handle it? I think the way Carol said it, that's perfect. Would you like to have the dollars come out of each department's, how are we affected, violated? That sounds horrible. Each department that had heard a problem should come out of their budget. Or would you like to have $5,500 for the selectmen's budget? So there it appears and they can pay out of that one budget. Any thoughts? Or any options other than those two?
I mean, I would weigh in personally thinking it should come out of the budgets. There was some things did not need to occur and have fines. They were ongoing things. A lot of it has to do with maintenance and oversight, like looking at fire extinguishers and things like that. I think having it come out of the budget would put a fine point on it to all the directors of those various departments. And then to Carol's point, if they run over and we are at a situation, we'll come to you then. But I think my preference would be to have it come out of the budgets.
My only problem with that, Catherine, is remember, it started off at $14,000, right? And then it whittled down to $5,000. How do you quantify that now? Gotta remember, the papers that they showed us broke down every fine and every amount. Now that they've reduced it to $5,000, how do we say what each fine's worth now?
Does the 5,000 correlate back to every line? I don't remember from that
I
call.
don't believe he did. He just said we started at 14,000, and we brought it down to 11,000 some change, and then we cut it by 50%, and brought it down to 5,000 some change.
The
So
only way-
my question is, how do we go back and say, Department A, you initially had $1,500 worth of fines, where does it fall now? Do we say you have to give us 1,500? But it came reduced down over here.
Yeah, so this
Okay,
copy
so
from OSHA, he actually wrote in there where he reduced all
Well,
the
reduce each
fines.
one, okay, I didn't see it,
Yeah,
you haven't showed
exactly.
that with us, so.
Yep.
Let's clarify. They reduced the fines.
Yeah.
Did they say which department is allocated the 5.5? Is that next one?
Yes,
Oh, they do? Okay.
it's all in this.
I didn't see that information, so I would have that
Sorry.
question.
This came in when I was away, and it has all the, what we sat down, and, you know, penalty amended from 350 to 175, for example, citation 1, item 1, you know, so you have to go back in and look. But we can certainly do that.
Following your earlier comments, 5.5, a portion will be attributed to WPCA, correct? How much is net town?
That I did not quickly look at. Pete was here. Pete, do you remember what WPCA ended up with once everything was reduced?
I don't know, all I know is to answer Dwayne's question, John and I went up there and spoke with them in advance of the meeting, and they agreed to it. I thought I misspoke, I told Carol it was 50%. I was not accurate, that's federal OSHA. Connecticut OSHA is 30%. They told me we're a little bit in the bind, so he had the discretion to increase it. All the fines were cut in half, 50%.
Right, but
Is that accurate, John? Ely? No?
But to your point,
But-
Todd, there's a fee for WPCA that can come out of that, and the balance will come out of town department funds. So yes, it can be allocated back.
Seems to me should be allocated to the, if that is the decision of the Board of Finance, allocated to each department, that seems to be a lien, or to put it up to the selectmen.
So the WPCA amended is $1,260. They owe $1,260.
$160?
$1,260.
Oh, okay. There's a difference.
It's
Yeah.
WPCA.
So we're talking about the town being a little less than 4,000, we will be taking out people's budgets, that, I'm doing that quick now.
4300.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And that would be split, you know, the library would get a hit, Public Works, transfer station, Park and Rec, and the town hall.
Town hall, which fits into your budget or into buildings? Town
It would
buildings.
be probably town hall repairs, right, unless the building.
All right. Okay, Strowman, let's take it out of people's budget. Anybody disagree with that? Okay. Which means, but, which line do we take out? Emery and I had a private conversation, because there's only two of us. The following goes. Emery assures me that we, Board of Finance, have the authority to create new line items. And we will call it, everyone can participate, Connecticut OSHA funds. Right? And we'll take that allocation. So we'll create in each one of those departments a new line item.
But I just have a question. We've already cut a lot of budgets quite a bit, and I know it's only $4,300. But if that's the case, and you take it out of people's budgets, what are the corrective actions so that it doesn't happen again? Do the department heads get written up? Or what's the corrective measure if it happens again?
I'm going to pass that back to Select.
I don't know if, I've thought that way, but a lot of the corrective actions are gonna be long-term. Like, one of them was training on bloodborne pathogens, and just, even though we were doing the training, it wasn't in the handbook for that specific department. So that handbook's getting rewritten, or it already had been rewritten before the summer camp staff came on board, so hopefully that won't come up again, but I mean, individual little things, I think each department tried to implement something, so those violations wouldn't happen again.
I think Mike's question goes a little bit further.
Yeah, how do we make sure it doesn't happen again?
That, is there a, lack of a better name, reprimand to be given to people where this violation took place? Taking it out of their budget.
Are there gonna be any more, are there gonna be any oversights installed now so it doesn't happen again? Because obviously there was no oversights before.
Those are all, that's a good question, and I think the department heads will have to just make sure that everything gets implemented, spreadsheets and quarterly checks, monthly checks of the fire extinguishers, little things like that. I know in town hall, we've come up with some spreadsheets, we have it on our phone now, once a month it pops up to check the fire extinguishers, things like that. But if personnel leave, and, I think personnel that were in place maybe for a while, and then new regulations came up, or new, requirements, and it was an oversight that they didn't get implemented.
No,
Yes,
if
but
it was,
explain to me
well, if it was on
just-
purpose, then I could see maybe taking it out of their budget. If it was because they didn't know better, or there was no avenue or, chain of command to have them do it. My opinion, just pay the lump sum up to the selectmen, and just have them write the check and make sure there's stuff in place so it doesn't
So
happen
for
again.
clarification, the OSHA offenses were not things not being in place, like a fire extinguisher or a guardrail somewhere. It was patterns of behavior that were being,
For the most part, it seemed to be a lot of,
Well, there was no exit signs at the library.
Yeah, like record keeping, like we don't have exit signs in the basement here, so we got cited. No one really works in the basement, so that really was something that probably got overlooked.
and is there someplace a list of what you were required to do for OSHA to meet their standards or requirements?
Well, when she came out, she was very, very nice, and she walked around with Tina, my assistant, and, had Tina write notes and kind of point things out. So there was a lot of things she pointed out that weren't necessarily written down, like every missing exit sign.
I suppose my question, reiterated, is were people aware that they were committing an offense or creating an offense, or was it just something that was happening because that was a pattern of behavior, or the way things were run?
I think
No, I
just
don't
some of it,
understand.
Carmela, was people really didn't realize that it was an offense. Somebody was using an extension cord, and it was this far from the wall, and they thought that was better because they had a surge protector, and they thought in case there was something, so when she said you can't use an extension cord, they unplugged it and plugged it into the wall. And so to them, they thought buying that surge protector was protecting the appliance.
So to address Michael's question, then, is there something that's being established, written up, so that people know what they're supposed to be doing and not doing? So this doesn't occur again?
Well, I mean, I think as people have been taught, or now they're educated on these things, it's not going to happen, but they come out every 7 years, so if 5 years we have a change of personnel in a particular office, somebody might plug in an extension cord, and then it's just a matter of,
The only way I believe that you can prevent it from happening is you hire a consultant that comes in periodically and acts like an OSHA person to
So people
inspect.
are aware of
So
what
they can
is
say, oh,
required.
there's another fire,
Right.
exit sign missing.
and they will come
And
down.
that's
They
what a
have-
lot of companies
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Can I speak as the fire marshal, not as an audience member? So that could be a way to do it, but isn't there a town safety committee that meets like once a
There is a
month?
safety committee, yes.
So I think that's a good avenue to provide oversight on a lot of this stuff and make sure that there's checks and balances. And that the items that were captured, are covered going forward. And then the challenge with any inspection like this is a lot of it comes down to the discretion of the person doing the inspections. All varied levels of experience and backgrounds and expertise. And so you could have 3 different OSHA inspectors come through and get 3 very different reports. So you do the best you can with it. And even OSHA regulations that vary from fire code regulations, things that may not get picked up in other inspections. Some of what I saw and heard wouldn't be what I would be looking at, nor would I agree with, but that's my personal opinion. So it would be very difficult to capture everything. They need a report at the end of the day. But I think that safety and compliance committee would be a good thing, a good start.
That's a good idea.
And I'd be happy to advise or be part of that too as a fire marshal.
Does the safety committee have an expertise in this kind of thing too? Because that would be important. Because that would be my concern,
Yeah.
is unless you have somebody that really is knowledgeable about the laws, you can have a lot of volunteers, but you have the expertise, but does the committee? So-
It's the department head. The safety committee is the department head from each
Yeah.
department.
And through that committee though, you could bring in, you could have
Bring
someone
in
come in
someone.
and ask them to come in once every, like fire inspections are once every 3 years for a lot of these buildings. So a lot changes, so you could have a consultant come in on the off period, once every 2 years or something, just to provide some checks and balances, But that's something that I think that committee, my thought would be a good thing for them to oversee.
And Tina now is running that committee, that typically was the selectman assistant who run that, so, and oftentimes our KERMA safety person would attend those meetings, so, but that's a great idea.
And actually, that's a good avenue too, Carol, is to ask them to come in. They should be able to come in and help out and do their own inspections, another set of eyes. Oftentimes, they'll do that as part of the policy.
Chester has a member of the town crew who has the expertise and is responsible for running around to all the buildings and maintaining. Something to think about. Thoughts? So we've got 2 valid ideas. They get out of every affected department, or just recognize that these folks did not have the experience and knowledge to do it, and just simply put it into the selectmen's budget.
I guess my question would be, what's the paperwork involved in sending it out to every department? Is it worth it for less than $5,000? And I'm thinking the amount of hours spent trying to divide it up and figure it out. We're not talking $100, it's less than $100 worth of
$4,240.
Well, how many departments have you said? So Anne Marie is going to identify some departments and charge them a couple $100. To your point, it just seemed illogical.
Well, all the fines are here with the fees, so.
But if it's going to come down to something, 4,000 for somebody?
I thought you said 4,240. You had 5,500
We're
reduced
picking
by
up momentum and just
1,260.
put it into the selectmen's budget and one spot. It's well within the Board of Finance's purview to move those kind of dollars. That way, if we move $4,000, so $5,000 in, we will not have to affect every department. And we will not, maybe this was your thing, we will not penalize each department for things that they did not know that they were responsible for. Well, a marginal number.
If there are blatant violations that they did, following what Mike said there, then yes, I would agree to go after department heads. But again, for someone that doesn't know about, I think one of the fines was a cover plate on an outlet. So you're gonna take that out on the department head because they have a plate? We need someone like what Chester has that can oversee our buildings.
But you can't react to stuff you don't know about, so the departments need to know what offenses they've been held to line for and what they need to look at again to correct, so it doesn't, as Mike said, it doesn't happen again.
All the department heads were at the conference. They all got their reports.
So maybe the thing could be is at a staff meeting twice a year or once a year, you have this as an agenda item and have them all report on. Have they checked for the
To Jackie's point,
violations?
there is not that expertise in-house.
Yes, but what Jackie is saying is, we now have a list of things that are basic violations. These are the violations that have been found. So everybody, each department has been made aware of that. Each department head they have their list, or they can write up a simple list. fire extinguishers, plates, signs, exactly, those kind of things, and they can do a semi-annual check. They also offer free consultation to come out and do training and that sort of thing. And it could be the sort of thing that this is done at Carol's discretion once a year, twice a year, something like that. But I do think it's important now that this has occurred, that each department head understands that there are certain violations that can occur. There are things they should be looking out for. This is an eye-opener now. They can have some additional training, but it should be ongoing part of their responsibility.
And then who they up-channel it to, and then ultimately that person's gotta make sure it gets done. So if there's an outlet that needs to be fixed or something, they up-channel it to whoever's in charge of building maintenance, right? And then they get it fixed. There's gotta be a paper trail, right?
So I have one question, seeing all the firemen are here. Do you have anyone on staff or anyone in the department that has confined space training?
No.
One of the violations was a confined space. There was no one in the town that had confined space training for the WPCA, I believe it was. So that's something that is a
We all
sin.
enjoy.
Huh?
We're all set there. The one issue they have with us is we weren't relating, they wanted to know what would happen if we had a true emergency and we had to call in the emergency rescue.
For confined space.
No, just for rescue. It's got nothing to do with confined space. There has to be.
He brought up confined space that day, though, Pete. He brought up confined space that day.
Oh, not with us though.
What it was.
We were okay. They were concerned about response, who the first responders would be and what training they had to assist WPCA staff. Did he talk? Do you know anything about that, Timmy?
The only time you need confined space rescue capability is when you're making an entry. So if you're making an entry, you plan it out and you bring in a third party that has a rescue team on site.
But there was
So
something-
I'd be curious to see that one as
There
well.
was something in one of the violations about confined space, and I was very shocked that no one in the fire department had confined space.
Well, why
It's
would
kind
we?
of in the back.
Yeah, we can't.
So again, what happens if someone's in a manhole and you need
Drink out
help?
then.
I think when they were cleaning the tanks or something, there was a question.
They should have better tanks.
WPCA.
There was confined space.
All right, Board of Finance, I need a resolution.
Well,
I got a question.
Oh, yes.
No, it's more of a statement than a question. So I just went online, it says OSHA compliance training for business and industry, that would include us, and there's all of the categories, and most of it is free. It looks like there's about 15 to include confined space rescue, emergency response to hazardous materials. I train that also online for folks in my business, so I know there's options out there, so there's some good succession plans in place. I would just hate to see, like, if we take it out, let's just pay it all once and for all. But, you know, we have great conversations here, but the follow-through really needs to happen with it. It's going to continue otherwise, and I don't blame folks for not knowing what they don't know. But when we talk about open sockets on a wall, I mean, we don't let our kids run around with that, so why would we?
One of the sockets, like just a crack in it.
You know, we all have to take responsibility for everybody's safety, and so let's just get the online training. It looks like most of it's free.
Yeah, actually, as Catherine pointed out, OSHA has free consultations, so I have an email in there for 4 classes that they're gonna come and do for us.
And certainly at the fire academy up at Bradley, we can send some of our guys up there for this confined space training if they can't, why?
Because we need specialized equipment, we have to do regular training on that, and there's no reason for us to do that. People aren't doing confined space entries here in town, and if they are, then they have to bring in an outside rescue firm that's on site with them while they do the entry. Anytime they do a confined space entry. We should never get called out for confined space rescue, and if we do, we're gonna be calling someone like Guilford to come in and do that rescue. We can't maintain
Can we
those
challenge that
certifications.
fine then, if we can't do
You
it?
can't do that online.
But I mean, can we challenge the fine? The fine?
I would think so. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's worth a look.
You just took it.
Yeah,
We-
yeah.
I don't know if we got fined, it was just something we brought up.
Well, it sounds like it was a fine.
Well, there were a lot of violations, and that didn't necessarily have a fine
Okay.
attached to them. It was just something they wanted us to address. We did our conference with, only on the phone for us. So, you know, it was hard to kind of follow along while they were talking or taking notes, that sort of thing. So I don't know if there was a monetary figure with that confined space, but it was something we talked about.
Okay, finance, how do you want to proceed? Out of budget, which would require no activity on our part, or a special in the selectmen's 4,300, is that the number you came up with?
$4,240.
Your major. What's your thoughts? I need a resolution for where you want to go. Anybody with strong thoughts?
I wish I could look at the fines to have a better idea, but we don't have time for that.
Good. Are you suggesting that there's no fines until you look at it?
No.
It's got to come out of the selectmen's, or we got to take them out of budget?
I'm not suggesting that, I'm suggesting, was there aware of a disregard on the parts of the heads of the department? Or was it, they had no idea, because that makes a difference in how I feel it will go.
All right, excellent. What do you want to do, Board of Finance? Take it out of budgets, or do you want to put it in selectmen's budget?
I think it should come out of their budgets, and that way you'll know which department is responsible for what they have missing, and then next time something comes up again, they're gonna say, hey, we were not doing this, we were fine on this last time, we're not going to happen again.
Bud, could I offer a thought? If there was any negligence, they wouldn't have reduced your fines. You would have been paying probably hundreds of thousands of dollars of any negligence, and they wouldn't have reduced a dime. And I think that the thought of Kerma, or whatever the town insurer is taking the lead on it, that if there is an OSHA violation and someone is hurt, they're going to want to know and abate that before there's any injury payments going on.
Point of order, we are not having audience of citizens at this time, we're having a formal meeting.
Well, Bud didn't tell me I couldn't talk to him. So he's the
Although,
chairman of
I
the Board
did-
of Finance.
That's correct, but it is not on the agenda, Catherine, is correct. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Board of Finance. I need some resolution.
So I make a resolution that the
Coming
fines
out of
come out of the departments.
I like it. Good, do I have a second? Second, thank you very much. All right, all those in favor of allocating the funds to each department that is so affected by creating a line item in their budget, and the advantage of this, and why they turn out, as we move forward to mitigation, we will increase those numbers. All those in favor, allocating it to town budgets, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
How about the nays?
Have it the nays. One. Perfect. A nay. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Back to you.
Okay, so line items in each of their budgets, and money's coming out of each department. Got it. Okay. Thank you for that. Number 3 on the agenda. Number 3 is to discuss and, if appropriate, vote on a request from the Finance Department for additional funding of $15,000 to hire a new assistant. Anne-Marie Ryan, our Finance Director, is here. She'd like to speak to that.
Yes, so I currently find myself without an assistant. I've been in my role now since last October, and I think I've wrapped my head around all of the things that have been going on in the department, a lot of things that need to happen in the department so that we are functioning more effectively for the town. To that end, I would like to take the position as it currently stands and increase the responsibilities and the knowledge requirements for that role. I would look to hire someone with more of a strong accounting background, preferably with some municipal experience, in order to entrust them with a bit more of the day-to-day accounting minutia so that my time can be freed up to establish some of the things that are missing in the department, which you are all very well aware of, parking lot lists, policies, etc. I sent the finer points to you all in an email on Sunday night, I believe. But if you have any specific questions you'd like me to address, I'm happy to do that.
This would require, if you are in favor of this, this will require us to make a a supplement to that line item, which we're allowed to do up to 20, so it's well within our parameter.
I have a question. So this position, would it be a totally brand-new position and not the same position that gets an unnegotiated contractual raise?
It's an interesting question, given the last part. So I would consider the position a new position. It would have a different title, and the responsibilities would be significantly more. As far as their unnegotiated raise, that aspect would not change, because they're not union members.
But historically, even non-union members get the union member raise.
Correct.
So I just don't want this to open the floodgates where, okay, they got, that position got a raise. And rightfully so, it could be like, well, they're entitled to a raise, they're entitled to a raise also. Until the contract is up for negotiations.
I mean, there is no rule saying that those of us outside of the union are, under any kind of obligation to receive the same raise.
There's a lot of past practice for 20, 30, 40 years that, and an arbitrator's going to say, even though they're not classified as union members, they're getting the same pay raises as union members. So I just want to make sure it's a totally new position that,
Yes, and it is, to clarify, it is a part-time position and it is not a part of the union. It's not eligible to be a part of the union.
I have a question. And that is, we're aware of all the items on the parking lot, and some of them include policies that we've asked to be made. Is that the sort of work that will be completed in, say, a 6-month time frame? And my question would be, if it is, and it seems to me that there would be a duration to that once we get X number of policies identified, shaped up, written and approved. Is there an ongoing need then for this position at the higher level?
I would say yes. It is my experience that while I have a concrete list now, that list will regularly have items added to it. Laws will change. In the last couple of years alone, significant changes had to be made in accounting in regard to lease practices because of new laws that were changed. It required finance departments to start tracking things in a whole new way, go back and assess a significant amount of records. There's just always something.
My next question is on, in your memo, you made comparisons to a few of the adjacent towns and the rates they are being paid. Do the adjacent towns currently have the higher level staff and they're paid at that rate, or is it just a higher pay for a lower level staff?
I would say it's the higher level staff at that rate of pay. I look for job descriptions where I could. If nothing else, titles that included the term accountant in there, and that's where I source my information.
Thank you.
I've got another question. As far as writing policies, most towns either have an HR director that writes policies or an administrative assistant. So you write policies for the town?
So I'm actually talking about finance policies.
Okay, just financial policies.
Yes. I know that I do kind of cross over into the HR space, just in the nature of payroll, kind of straddling both worlds. But outside of that realm, I wouldn't feel very comfortable writing policy.
Okay.
The job is rather difficult. I occasionally think that we probably didn't do full disclosure with Anne Marie when we shared what she had to do. She's in there by herself. She's doing payroll, which should be done by an assistant. She's actually Jackie now comes in and enters information into the system. It is certainly a position, an office, a function that needs more than one person, and we're getting further and further, we're getting behind. If you remember, Anne Marie is also bringing on a new accounting system. So I encourage you to smile upon the request, but Board of Finance, thoughts?
Well, I also wonder too if it's not sort of a wise decision in the sense that we've spent a lot of money with accounting firms like Mahoney Sable helping when we get behind. So by hiring a more competent person, we may end up in the long run saving money.
Additional thoughts? All right, Board of Finance, do I have anyone who would recommend increasing the, creating a new, how do you wish to have it phrased? Create a new position which has an additional 50, what's the total dollar amount to that line item now? With your 50?
With the 15, just shy of 45.
55. Would you close down the line item with your current system, create a new line item?
I probably just retired.
We don't, okay. Board of Finance, does anyone wish to make that proposal?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second, all right. We're going to retitle the existing assistant to, whatever you haven't thought about, we'll be surprised, to a salary of $45,000, still a part-time position. Any discussion? First discussion, second.
Just a quick discussion, so that, does that mean now we're using the salary study, which we weren't using before?
I do not believe that Anne Marie's going to claim that salary study had anything to do with her.
I have never read the salary study.
Additional questions?
So that person doesn't become a union employee at any point, because they're part-time, no benefits, just their straight salary.
Correct.
Correct.
And who sets up their job parameters? You?
Generally, well, falling on the purview of the director.
Additional thoughts? All right, all those in favor of increasing, creating a new title and increasing the salary to 45, which reflects 15 on the top of the existing system, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. All those opposed? All right, it's done. All right, Carol, back to you.
All right. Thanks, John. So we are posting for a new parking rec director, so if we can get a job description, we can kind of start posting.
We need a new director?
Yes, we did.
The one we asked with?
He resigned, his last day was the 22nd of August. All right, the next thing on the agenda, to discuss the financial impact of the town budget to construct a new firehouse and purchase 2 new fire vehicles. Right now, it looks like, working with the fire department, fire commissioners, they've been meeting with architect and construction management firm to give us some rough prices. Looks like our figure is $8.1 million to construct the firehouse and about $2 million to purchase 2 fire vehicles. One would be a new engine and the other would be a new brush truck. So
I'd like to push back a tad on your numbers. You're absolutely correct.
Okay,
There are estimates, wait a minute, David, there are new estimates as of 2 o'clock this afternoon,
right on,
for
fresh like this.
constructing the firehouse.
Okay,
And while I'd like to pull Anne Marie into this thing, she has listened patiently. Anne Marie talked to Department of Agriculture that they would be willing to provide us a 40-year lease, a 40-year loan at 4%. But they will not finance construction. So we will have to go out and seek an additional loan to finance the construction. When the loan is finished, we'll take the interest on the construction and roll it into the cost of the project. I have added, due to the uncertainty, what was the word you could use, preliminary numbers, big numbers, I've added a 10% contingency to that. We just don't know. So the numbers I gave you, what was it, 8.1, are up now to closer to, I'm trying to get my numbers.
891.
891. I believe they are up, in addition, higher than that due to Dave's numbers that he, construction numbers that he sent out. Again, it is based on my assumption that we need to finance it and put a contingency in there. Trying to find my,
So while you're looking, what's
Here,
the
if I get the
finance
straight copies up.
rate?
well, that's not, I want Dave's numbers now.
I have them for you.
9.155?
Let's see. Eight numbers down, Dave's numbers up to 7.9.
Is it 2 this afternoon?
Yeah, 6.79. That's what numbers. I call it looking in.
Cost is close.
Here you go. The new number, $7,982,361, which includes furniture, which I find very interesting. And I'm going, one of the problems people do analysis, they think every assumption is critical. I'm fascinated whether they will allow us to finance furniture for 40 years. I am recommending that the firehouse is going to cost us $9,950.
Sold.
One long time ago, Steve sat that very chair, he was going to build this firehouse.
So 9.95 million?
Yes, for the firehouse. I've talked to about, same is true with the truck, the same concept is true with the trucks.
That's not including interest, that's just.
So that includes interest and my contingency, correct. I believe if you're going to send this to the town, you should tell the town, here is the total cost, our best estimate of total cost for a firehouse.
So best estimate is going to be 9.95.
Yes.
Okay.
And for the equipment is?
The equipment, I believe the number you should send to the town is $2 million. Same thing. Anne Marie has worked with Tim, so we're getting it a third or fourth hand, however you'd like to do it. Current engine 1.5, brush truck 260, correct? Again, I do not know the timing of the cash flow, how long that will be outstanding. The advantage of leasing it is the lease company will make all of those payments for us. As soon as they start making payments, we incur interest. Right? So I've added some interest, I've added 10% to that as well. I believe the number is 1.936, I've rounded that to 2, is what you should tell the town would be the cost of the 2 new trucks.
Yeah, I haven't seen those.
So could you just clarify something? You said that the agricultural loan at 4% would not cover construction?
Construction costs, that's correct.
So how much will they cover of this almost 10 million?
They will cover the cost of the project. They will not fund it up front.
So we would have to borrow at 7%?
No. I have assumed, since it is a short-term financing, and we have a guarantee that the federal government's going to take it out, that a bank is going to lend it to us at, I've assumed 2%.
Oh, okay.
At what, 2%?
2%. Working capital loans for a municipality for about 2 years. It's my assumption. We do not know the cash flow, but what we're talking about is having the town participate in making this decision. And that's why I offered you that number. If you chose to send this 2 questions to the town, you should say to the town, are you willing to pay $9,900?
9 million.
Thank you, 9 million. It took me years to stop saying million.
Won't have it in my
That is
account.
correct. And up to $2 million for the trucks. If you send 2 questions, add them together, you send 1 question.
Well, I think there was a lot of thought about having the 2 questions. On the downside, maybe then one gets approved and the other doesn't.
Is that, you produce your car, is that a downside? Is that a downside? Or is that an upside, where the town gets to participate? I don't know.
Well, I would like to add in on this, but through the written email that Jackie made, thanking you for doing this analysis. I know we're at a point where the selectmen have to make a recommendation, and will shortly be whether to move forward or not. I have been very uncomfortable with the general concept without knowing the total amount, which we now know, a better sense of the interest, which we now have. And I think one of the things that was most important to me was understanding what would be a prudent total capacity of debt for the town. And in the analysis you gave, you stated that looking at various government reports and statutes that we could, a town of our population, whether or not we wanted to do this, but could carry up to $113 million of debt. And understanding that out of parameter, understanding where we are now are, I believe we have $5.6 million of debt. So this would be adding almost 12 to that. So that would be taking us to a total debt of roughly, if we have 5.6 and we're going 11.9, $17.5 million of debt. So understanding those numbers gives us a framework within to make a decision. So thank you for doing that analysis. And one thing when we move forward, and we don't have that now, we're looking at this consideration, I think one thing this body needs to do would be to look at what are the upcoming large possible initiatives that we're going to need to ask the town for money for, and to prioritize them, understanding where they might come, and then what that total would be within that 113 million. The additional thing you did, for which I think we're all appreciative, is that you made the comparison to take it to how many mills this would then increase and what is the average cost, and you broke that down between the fire station and the equipment. That was very helpful. It makes us understand it better. So thank you for that.
Now, with the new figure, does that change the figures that Catherine was just referring to? You had us at 405 annually for the fire, for the house.
So let me do the today numbers. If you remember, in my summary, I rounded numbers up. With the $80,000 increase they added, you're well within the rounding numbers. I still believe that the increase in the mill rate is about 1.29.
1.29, it was 1.21, so 1.29.
That's right, 1.32 for $11 million.
So it's 11,950.
Yes, yeah, this one here that he sent out was 11.1, 1.32 mils, correct? That's it.
So does this need to go up again?
I believe so. If it's gonna be up to almost 12 million, it's
All
gonna
right,
go
so
again.
we would need to have that calculation.
Again.
Thank you.
I believe the average home owners, we'll play with that word in a moment, about $400 they will pay an annual to pay for postage.
For the next 40 years?
Let's go with the yes to your answer. If we're going to finance the building for 40 years, but we're only going to finance the trucks for 15. So let's go with the yes to your answer.
Why 40 years? When it's 60?
40 is generally the longest term of debt.
That's
USDA won't go out past 40.
Because I'm assuming our house is good for 60 years.
That's right. That is their maximum number, correct? So we are limited by, as is the 15 with the lease.
And state reimbursement or any grant money?
That I can't answer. All I do not know that.
And the mills increase is roughly 1.32 or 3.
1.29, on this paper, so 1.32.
And then it's going up from there.
So what would it increase to? 1.21, 1.3?
It's at 1.32 and it would be slightly up.
3267, I've got it.
1.3267.
3267. Well, that's what we'll take the new number in. And, yeah, and that's the actual number. It is 7, and then we have all these other increases.
Just for information, that mill increase would just cover the firehouse and the 2 trucks.
That's correct.
What other kinds of obligations is our town looking at in terms of new budgeting items or items that are already in place that need to be attended to? What kind of other costs are people going to be facing? Because your mill rate will permanently increase to that amount for the next, let's say, 40 years, right?
Correct.
What else is coming down the pike that we need to deal with in terms of expenses to the town?
We have to think about possible school regionalization, upgrades to the town hall, upgrades to the library, improvements to
Infrastructure.
the dump,
Yeah.
the transfer station, capping, the landfill. What else? We've all been talking about.
We talked about the basement needing, what, $300,000-$400,000, so we need to capture that in the town. Yes.
And then, yeah,
So are we looking at, and I'm just going to pull a figure, a possible mill rate of 33, 34, 35?
Well,
That's my concern.
okay. Yep.
My concern is that we went up this year 1 point something mils, correct?
Yeah.
We have no idea. I asked at our selectmen meeting, we had, what does the projection look like for our school next year? Our Region 4, what's our ADM on that look like? We don't know because we usually don't get that number until October. But these are my concerns that, yes, we need the firehouse, yes, we want it, but before we come out of the chute, we're at 1.35 or 1.32, whatever the number we're gonna use. And I couldn't remember, but did we take any money out of surplus this year to put, and how much was that? 500 or 600?
Oh, yeah. Do you remember that?
that's close.
Okay, so now we're a mill behind already before we even start, correct? But that's a mill, so we're 2.3 mills behind before we start our general budgeting
Exactly.
for the rest of the town.
And let us mention that we have the unfunded pension liability, or the underfunded pension liability, so that'll be an ongoing catch-up for the next 10 years.
I just wanted to bring up one thing. We have 6 existing bond issues, and as far as their maturity dates, nothing is really coming soon. The most recent one will be due in 2020 payments, and that will free up about $203,000 a year. But the other 5, we have one going for 5 years, one going for 15, 12 years, 32 years, and 32 years. So again, none of these, except for that one, will be actually maturing in the near future. And that's still 20 months. So just to let you know that.
So when Bud presents the figures to us, saying that we could have up to $113 million of debt, the current 5.6 million is probably the highest rate of debt we've held as a town, Tom? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, with these 6 bond issues, that's the largest amount of debt that I can remember that the town has had.
So you have that, and then you have the consideration of the mill rate. We're at 31.4 now?
Yes. 3.
About 31.38? 31.38, and if we were adding 1.35, that'd be at 32.73 before we put anything else up. I will mention that when this subject had come up, the thought was, present this to the town and let the town people make the decision. So, but we do have a role as leaders to be thinking about what debt should we carry, what can we carry, what does this do to business to have a mill rate like this, what does it do to residents, what does it do to senior citizens. So that's in the mix. That's all in the mix.
Correct.
The unfortunate part is that we've been kicking the can down the road for years. And, it's not gonna get any better. So, in all fairness to, the firehouse and trucks, I mean, they're in a tough spot too. And I think we have to look at that. What are we gonna do? Are we just gonna, let that go and it's down the road? It's not gonna be any better time.
Right, nothing's
So-
getting cheaper.
Yeah.
The last time this went up, how much was it? 5 million?
The
The first time was 4.3, the second vote was 2.3, 2.6. I'm just guessing at those numbers.
Right, and of cost of a fire truck was like 700,000 or something like that.
And we also have to realize that if this does not, the town people do not approve this, we still have repairs we have to make and a problem to solve.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So I guess we can keep the budget flat. I mean, it's gonna go up. So 32.71 I got, and we got 31,333. So, yes, thank you, Bud, for all your
You
numbers.
can't even go with that number, because again, we're $500,000 in the hole already. That's a mill. So before we cut, before we even start our budget come January, we're $500,000 in the hole. So we have to find either $500,000 cut, or we have to bring the mill up there. So that 32.71 is actually 33.71.
Is there any possibility for grants from the federal government? Is there an avenue to pursue for that? Is there some kind of fundraising we can do to assist in, I mean, just 32.73 mils to not even start our budgeting for the rest of the year?
Absolutely, it's tough. You know,
Is-
the fire department's been looking to get grants for years. They write them. You know, a lot of times, Deep River is considered a wealthier community, so we're not awarded those dollars, is what I've been told. And what I've talked to some of our elected officials, every town needs a new firehouse, and everyone I've spoken to, they say, we hear that from every town. And so, I mean, as Tom said, it's not getting any cheaper, and I think every municipality seems to be up against the same thing. Prices just it's astronomically increasing.
Can I provide some context on the grants?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So our experience in, over the years, generally they're not available for a single building project like this. They're available for a public safety complex. So when you combine three entities, like a town police department, and PSO with what we have, when you can qualify for that, generally, Guilford is a good example. The one that we use quite often, that's a public safety complex. They have a accredited police station, police department. They have animal control in there, and they have the fire department in there. And that was a brand public safety complex that was built under an agreement. So generally, it's been that for those types of complexes that you can sometimes get grant funding for those. So it hasn't been an option for us.
Here?
What's that?
Can we do that?
There's not enough space on that lot to do more than just a fire department.
We have to look at another piece of property, another
Could go to
location.
another story.
No, they looked into
We
that.
still don't have the
Just-
footprint for the cars and the apparatus.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to find a new piece of property. It's a public complex.
So with these numbers, do people feel it's prudent to move it to referendum? I think that's where we are on this.
Well, that's the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Finance has weighed in, so it would be up to the Board of Selectmen to take a vote to move it to the referendum. The goal was to put it on the ballot in November. Typically, a presidential election brings out a lot of people, and we thought that would give the residents of Deep River a bigger voice than if we had a referendum. Typically, referendums draw out only hundreds of voters, whereas the presidential election will have a couple thousand, so we would be a better representative.
We have a lot of open forums to go over it, to the plans and things like that.
I think if we vote tonight to put the language on the ballot, we have to have the town clerk, the language has to be in by the 5th. And then it would be up to the fire department, fire commissioners, as well as we would all attend, but have kind of educational sessions and invite the public in. They can look and review the design of the building, ask questions, why it needs to be a certain size, all those kind of little details.
How would that be, through public hearings, or town hall, open hall, town
Yeah,
meetings?
kind of public meetings, yeah.
Because I think people really need to understand where the situation the fire department is in now, and what's proposed, and what it's going to mean to each individual in town in terms of their own budget. I
Absolutely.
think knowledge is power. People need to understand what they're voting for, and not just come in and blindly check off a box, because I think they need to understand everything. And so how does that happen?
Well, like I said, the Board of Fire Commissioners are on board to have a chance to talk to the public as many times as it takes.
I'm just wondering though if there would be a role for the Board of Finance to take and explain that. I don't know that we could expect the firemen to explain the financial one. I think they would do a great job on the needs of the fire department and the safety for the town. But I think we need a partnership. I don't know if
It's
that
been my
falls to you.
expectation that if you so move it, I and other members here would be willing to share this is something.
That was the assumption. Thank you.
Would you like a motion?
Any other discussion?
Can we hear from the audience, any comments, any opinions, any thoughts, or is this not the format for that?
Well, we don't have that on the agenda,
So there's no public participation?
not at this time. It's really up to the Board of Selectmen to vote to move it forward. So, sure, I'll take a motion.
Is this the?
Well, I have the two, the language, but I have to change the numbers now.
I make a movement that the Board of Selectmen approve that the statement is read here, the questions for the balance, for adding to the referendum for the November 5th ballot with the verbiage proposed here with the adjustments to the new numbers as mentioned by the Board of Finance Chair, V8.
Okay?
You think it's in two questions or one? That's a
So
one.
the two questions would be, shall the town of Deep River appropriate $9.95 million to build a new firehouse to replace the existing structure to include but not limited to architectural design and plans, construction plans, bidding documents, document review, site preparation, permitting, demolition, utility connections, engineering review, and construction reserves, and authorize financing the appropriation through a loan not to exceed $9.95 million, or issuing bonds, notes, or temporary notes in an amount not to exceed $9.95 million. If any of that language now changes because of the USDA, this was approved by the town attorney, so I'd have to run it by her tomorrow if any changes. Number two, so then it would be yes, no. Number two, shall the town of Deep River appropriate approximately $2 million to purchase 2 new fire trucks, consisting of 1 new fire engine and 1 new brush truck, and authorize financing the appropriation through a 15-year lease not to exceed $2 million. Again, choices are yes and no.
Take the first one to 8, 9. Firehouse 8, 9.
Firehouse 8-9?
I'm correcting numbers a little bit now. Yeah, 8, 9. And
It's a
2.
big change. It's
Not
not
9
a
and 9.5?
No, 8, 9.
Well, we had 8-1,
That's
so
what it is.
8-9.
8, 1, so it goes to 8, 8, 9, 5, that's what it is.
Okay. so-
8, 1 was my estimate, based on work I was doing with Heather. And then we got Dave's Saturday memo, and that's what I did.
All right,
Final
so-
figure is,
Thank you. Final figure, for firehouse, we will ask the town to approve $8,950,000. No change to the trucks. And I believe, hopefully, that gives us contingencies and a few other, again, we're making guesses here, but that's correct.
Can I just clarify, I mean, I know you've got just a question. So that includes furniture? We're gonna,
Dave's memo today includes $80,000 of furniture.
You really want to finance furniture for 40 years?
That, if you remember, I threw in this throwaway phrase, I'm not convinced that they're going to allow us to finance furniture which will not live for 40 years, hopefully. I do not know, that will probably have, I will have to do another way of financing
Yeah, I agree with you. The financing furniture for 40 years is,
I think if that's possible, but it's shared for 40 years, that's makes sense.
it. It will look like furniture in here.
I appreciate
Chair, it's 4
you're
years.
doing it back in the envelope to 8.9. Will you do more careful analysis?
I'll come in
next
tomorrow
year
and work with
get that
Amber or
taken care
something, but yeah, we'll make sure that knows.
Does that number include the paving of across the street? And all the lighting that you guys wanted?
of? It had been discussed at about $60,000 to do that the day we were all in the meeting. Is that included
I
in
don't
this
think
amount?
so. You're welcome.
I believe that just the $5,000, sorry.
Is that in that under construction?
That's for the firehouse itself.
So I have a motion on the table from Selectman Russell to approve the language, number one. Number two, changing the figure to 8.95 million.
Or as amended by Bud overnight. Because he's reviewing the figures, just to be calibrated.
Okay. So we can, so basically, number four was selectmen vote to move to referendum the question of building a new firehouse and the purchase of new fire vehicles. So then we can, the motion with the ability to make a slight correction based on Board of Finance final number tomorrow.
Not too many, showing that, that's correct. I got too many numbers there.
All right, can I have a second on that motion?
I'm very reluctant to do it because of the taxes on our community. I just want that on tape, that I'm reluctant to do it, but I will move it forward and let the taxpayers vote on it. But I'm very concerned about the taxes of our community. People can't afford 34, 35 mils. They cannot afford it. I hear it all the time. And I'm concerned about our citizens. We don't know where we're going to be with our school budget. We don't know where we're going to be with the town landfill. That's $1 million, $1.5 million to cap the landfill. We need that money. And like I keep saying, we're $500,000 in the hole already for next year's, before we come out of the chute. I'm just concerned, but I will leave it to the taxpayers. If taxpayers support it, then great. But I'm a little bit reluctant because I'm afraid of the mill rate, so I'll second.
In support of, Dwayne, of what you just said now, I agree with what you're saying, and I think it will be absolutely critical that this be spelled out thoroughly at these public hearings, detailed by our finance chair, and fully discussed, so that the public goes in with an awareness exactly of that situation.
Totally educated on it. But- All right, so I had a second, kind of having a discussion as well. And I think we all are in agreement that, you know, it's a big chunk of money. We are not moving forward with this lightly by any means, but it is a necessity, not a want. You know, it's not a wish list item, it's something that really has been in need of repair. Our firehouse was built in 1961. It desperately needs a new roof, as far as limited, you know, more space. So let's let the taxpayers decide. So, all right, so motion, second the motion. All those in favor of moving this forward on November 5th to put it on the ballot, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, so firemen, let's get together and get some dates. And let's get the public on board. Right. We will look forward to that. All right, next thing on our agenda is adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn? So, all right.
Oh, we did the same thing. We're finance, next thing on our agenda is adjournment. What is the favor of adjournment? Please say aye. Aye.